Well, thanks everybody that's come and joined us today. My name is Matt Grimmer. I'm one of the sales executive for Top Green, and we are a division of Touring AI. And the basic platform that we offer is a AI-driven planning and optimization tool for landscape maintenance. To that effect, we're going to have a little conversation today with an early adopter of Top Greens, and that would be Greenscape. I'm here with Daniel Curran and Yates Hamilton. Dan and Yates, could you give me just a little introduction on how you guys come to be partnered with us and kind of your role in the industry at this point?
Yeah, Matt, thanks for having us. Yeah, quick background is saw or met Sashi and his team probably 2 years ago now, plus at technology conference, and they were talking about some stuff that was very different than everybody else, and they got my attention, and so we started having conversations and learn about what they were doing, and got the opportunity to kind of get involved early, and excited to kind of talk more about what we've learned and experienced over the last couple of years in our work with them or you guys. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks so much for being here with us. We really appreciate it. We know you're quite the influential figure in the landscape industry, so we really appreciate you being here. And Yates, you come to us from the Durham branch down there in Greenscape. Is that correct?
I do, yes, sir. So, again, Matt, thanks for letting me join you guys.
Absolutely.
As far as how I was introduced to Top Green, like you said, I'm a project manager with Greenscape. So, as Daniel decided to bring Top Green on, they introduced it in one of our locations in Durham. And so, at first, I got to meet Matt and Sashi. They kind of like Daniel said, it was very different than anything that I had heard that existed or knew anyone was doing. So I was very excited to, at the very beginning stages, to learn about what can be done with the tools that Top Green provides. And so, but yeah, so far so good with Top Green.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, guys. So one of the first things I kind of want to talk about is we are primarily involved in optimizing planning for landscape maintenance jobs. How we plan, what we look at, and then how we follow up with that into making some actionable changes. So for you guys, before you guys were using things like Top Green, what kind of planning were you guys doing for your landscape maintenance jobs? What did that look like for you guys?
Yeah,
Um,
so sorry,
Go
go
ahead,
ahead, Daniel.
Yates. No, give them the real
Um,
details, not what I'm gonna pretend to know.
so yeah, obviously, when job plannings look different for a lot of different places and how it's done. But for us at Greenscape, we've partnered with Advisor and had adopted the green system. And so with us, it was kind of much like probably many people do. We use motion maps, path of motions, how to move throughout properties and things like that, as well as Gantt charts. So we would take our estimate that we were given from our BD team on the production side, and we would know that a lot of time we would have to do certain services, and we would build off of that with our path of motion. So we would basically be a map, which we might see some examples here in the future,
Yeah.
but it was at the time working with Greenscape, it was one of the more sophisticated job plannings that I'd ever seen. Very detailed. Always glad to have a plan and how to put people in positions to be successful. And so that was kind of how we had adopted here at Greenscape, which I think is a very good way to do it and has been a good way to do it. So,
Awesome. Dan, what are some of the overall, I would say, common job site issues revolving a lot of that planning and estimating? I mean, everybody's got a different way they do it. I'm sure there's been some issues you've had large scale on, how we implement that.
Yeah, like Yates said, this is like job planning is, I mean, it's fundamental to like what we do, and how we do that well for our clients, right? It's not something you do when you have time or something like that. So you've got to kind of build it into the business. That's way harder than it sounds, right? Easier said than done. Yates referred, we kind of learned a lot about this over the years from an advisor, from Ben Gandy over there, in his experience. The thing that, like, my biggest takeaway was, like, we would spend a huge amount of time, like, looking at a project, job planning it, creating maps, path of motion maps, getting that figured out. And by the time we were done with that part of the project, we were, like, kind of done. And we weren't doing a great job of, like, implementing it into the field, right? And that's where the work happens, right? And that's not like an acceptable or an excuse, but that's like what was the pattern that was happening. And so what was really exciting about kind of hearing what Top Green team was doing and putting together was like, oh, they've figured out ways to bring tech to the front end of that so that we can still get all that done, because you have to get it done. But then spend our time as managers and leaders, like, in the field, working with our teams, like, training, teaching, executing these plans that we put together, versus spending all of our time on the front end building the plans out, which is just a overwhelming, task to take on, right? And probably, like, everyone, like, we didn't start this on day one of the company, so it wasn't like, oh, we sold our first project, we're going to start doing this. We came
Right.
to job planning and job mapping with hundreds of jobs, and you're just like, where do you start? How do you figure that out? And so that's one of the biggest challenges, and probably why I believe where we haven't always perfectly executed is because it's it's a very demanding business. It's seasonal. There are times you start stuff and you're like, oh, we're good, and then life happens and the season happens and you just don't have time. So that was the biggest thing I saw with what Top Green, you guys have put together, was like, oh, this is something we really want to do. We're having a hard time executing. We're going to insert you into our kind of process and system, and we're going to get a better result, hopefully. And that's what Yates and his team up there are starting to see and getting to experience. So yeah, a lot of trial and error along the way over the years in
Right.
trying to figure this out and execute it, and really execute it. It's very,
Yeah.
easier said than done.
That's the goal here. We want execution to, be a main focus and driver for not only operationally health of the company, but your crews too. Labor is something that we need to pay attention to across all fronts. So I appreciate that very much. Um, we're going to post a few questions out to the audience and attendees that are here today. We're going to start with the first one here. So you guys should see a poll popping up on your screen here shortly. I'll read it off here. When was the last time a job took longer than expected and you weren't sure why? This week, this month, it happens all the time, or never. We track the actuals versus the estimated job times. So we'll see what everybody kind of says on that front. Yates, what are your thoughts on that? How about you guys? When's the last time a job took longer than expected for you guys?
I would think that most people in production would be telling you a tale if they would say it's not a very common occurrence. And don't get me wrong, most of the time they come with good reasoning, a lot of explanations as to why a job might take longer than other. And on the production side, most of the time you're already aware of what those apprehensions might be. But I would think if everyone is at least in the reality that I'm in, that it is a very common occurrence. And a lot of the times without asking the right questions or being in the know, it is very much the answer is you do not know why that this is occurring.
Right. And I think some of the things that most companies do when they want to really dig into what the job sites are looking like out in the field would be to send guys out there, right? So we have to lean on either production managers like yourself or people going out on job sites and trying to figure out, all right, we're hitting estimate, but we see some funky things. There's a lot of time and effort involved in that, and that's typically something that's a heavy burden, especially when you have hundreds and hundreds of jobs, right?
Very much agree.
Hmm.
Yeah, Matt,
Yeah.
when we started, I guess kind of, all along the way, industry best practice, you measure actual versus estimate. automated. We implemented our bomb data software a few years back, pulling out of estimated versus actual out of Aspire, looking at that detail, ranking crews, seeing which crews are performing, drilling down into properties and kind of seeing like what's going on, kind of like what you're referring to, because like every job is not always on point, definitely every week. And then we started to look at that and go, okay, we've got these limited resources of these managers, so we can't see every job every day, whatever. So we just kind of started looking at the extremes where the efficiency was either really high or really low, and said like, hey, like Yates, go look at that crew on that job and trying to figure out how to best use his time, right? And then, but really at that point, then it's like, what does Yates do? Like he's like, yep, they're out here and they're using too many hours. I confirmed it, right? So, but then that's the idea is like, okay, then let's use some of these tools we're talking about, job planning. Let's put a better job plan together. How do we, figure this out? And like we kind of changed the thought process too. When a job's not going right, it's real easy to be like, first thing, the estimate's wrong. But the
Mhm.
reality is probably like that's we've made that now like internally that's the last thing that's wrong with the job. There are several things we can put in front of that we can control. And the last thing is like if we've done all those, then yeah, maybe the estimate's wrong. But I think Bruce Wilson, who's been a great influence and mentor of mine over the years, always talks about like, we're in competitive bid market. The customer only has X budget. Like
Right.
the price is the price, right? So even if you can't, it's really our job to figure out how to get it done and make money at that price because we can't just tell the customer, yeah, pay us double because we like to be inefficient and not manage our people very well, right? So, so the price is the price of whether the estimate's right or wrong most of the times, right? And so, um, so through Bomb Day, we're exposing this and seeing this and ranking this stuff, and it had much more transparency. But like, we're kind of lost with like, well, then what do you do about it, right? And that's where Top Green really kind of fell into our laps and made a lot of sense.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. I mean, from a visibility standpoint, I think where Top Green has really tried to put a focus is how do we get repeatable data from the job sites with as little intervention as possible, right? We
Yeah.
all are used to using points of tech that need some form of intervention by the crews when they get on sites or to check in and out of things, and that can be very cumbersome from a perspective of an operations thing. What we really need is something that people can just go out, run the job, we get the data back, and then we can discuss it and look at it and digest it as we need, right? So when we first partnered with you guys down in Durham, we basically outfitted one crew with our CrewIntel Vest platform, right? Our CrewIntel Vest platform started with 4 vests, which are the wearable tech portion of what CrewIntel does. And we attached small beacons onto each piece of equipment that were on that crew's truck. So now when the crew gets up and gets ready to go and leaves the shop in the morning, they put their vest on, they go do their work, they come back, they don't have to check in and out. And, that's really where we want to try and hit this, as little human intervention as possible. So to that end, we've got a little presentation of one of the job sites from down there at the Durham branch, the Calix job, which I know you guys have had for a few years now. And this is a great example of how we can take the information that CrewIntel is presenting and start making some actionable change on that. So Yates, can you kind of walk us through here what we're looking at here? So the first slide that we're going to see here, what is this that we're looking at?
Yeah, so as Matt stated, this is a property, Calyx. I would say it's more of our smaller to medium-sized property. As you saw on the first slide, you could see that was what our process is now. As soon as we got the property on, me and another production manager, we oversee it. We actually get boots on the ground. I've learned through our many production plannings that the Google Images or Google Earth rather is only as good it can be. So getting out there and
Right.
seeing it, that's the best way to actually kind of gauge what you're looking at, because for that one in particular, there's actually a fence in the back that doesn't show up. So for those reasons, we always get boots on the ground. And as you saw, that was from our best estimate, the best way to move throughout the property. For this instance was the 60-inch mower. We go through each piece of equipment. Each piece has a path of motion for each crew member that would be using it. And we actually worked that one, I believe, 3 times on path of motion. That was guys' feedback, us seeing it. So that's one that's been reworked many times. And what you saw on the second slide, that would be our Gantt chart. So we're working with our estimate on that. And so we're giving our estimate, and that will break down total time for everything. So for this instance, that said, for a 60-inch mower, the estimate says it's going to take around 90 minutes. And so obviously we're working that within our path of motion as well. These kind of coincide together as to how they're going to be used. And as you'll
And
see on the next slide, sorry, go ahead, Matt.
no, I was just going to say what we're looking at there on the previous slide is the initial planning Gantt through Crew Planner. So what we initially planned on that one for this job site would be the total turf area that we saw in your original path of motion there, Yates, running about 90 minutes to cut that.
Correct.
And that would be at a production rate of about 75,000 square feet an hour. Okay. So that's kind of what, when we plug into the system, we're telling the crews, okay, in this case, we're going to have, 90 minutes in which to complete that area. Now what we're seeing on this screen, tell us what we're kind of seeing here. This is the actual boots on the ground stuff.
So as Matt said, this is with our CrewIntel, so the actual physical vest on this crew. And as you can see here with our estimated, which would be using industry averages, was, like Matt said, 90 minutes. But you can see here with the 60-inch mower, the actual production time when using the vest of completing 70% of the turf areas was around, what is that, Matt, about 37 minutes, 35?
31 minutes or so on
Yeah.
this one. Yeah.
So you can see significantly less than what is called for in our estimate. You can obviously, great data to have. You get that real-time data. I've done it in the past where you're really actually out there with a stopwatch. You're really trying to get a good determination, the very old school way. So this is, like Matt said, boots on the ground. You can see that we have covered 70+% of all turf areas in 30 minutes rather than what the estimate was calling for 90. And so this right here is going to be a breakdown. You can actually see each person that was wearing a vest. You can see, and it has at the beginning, you can see orange is travel time, obviously traveling to the site. You've got your non-productive time, and that could be from guys getting equipment off the truck, everyone getting ready for the day. And then the green is your actual production time. And this will, it'll show you 60-inch mower, crew member number 1, first column. Yep, right there. You can see that he was actually productive for around 30-ish minutes is what it took to actually complete that turf area, that turf zone. And if we could go to the next one, so that was one of the first times we ever implemented the vest. That was really us kind of just getting the analytics, the statistics out of it. And we've come back now. We kind of had, we got all the information, we got all the data. And it was on the production side now. Okay, what can we do to improve it? Which I think is probably the biggest gap, right? We have a lot of systems, a lot of software that can bring out all kinds of data. But knowing what to do with that data is really the key. It's awesome to get all these numbers from wherever they can come from, but without it having any real meaning. So this is what is really different here. So you can see that one of the next time we went out to the property really made one big change. And knowing what we did, the big change was we removed a crew member off of, it was a 4-man crew, and now we've gone to a 3-man crew. And the reason we did that, we saw how much downtime that crew member 1 with the 60-inch mower actually had due to the fact that he could service the turf areas way quicker than what the estimate was actually calling for. And so with the thought of, hey, we take someone off, then obviously crew member number one has time for extra services. Meaning in this one, you can see it took him about, I think it was 5 minutes longer than the week before. And so we're still dealing with a very close amount of time from 31 to 37. And then you can see after that, he went in string trim. So you grab the weed eater. And what this allowed everyone to do is almost finish at the exact same time, which on any Gantt chart, if you've ever done one, you know is the ultimate goal. But you can see we basically got the same job done with one less crew member and with still within very much within the estimate. And you'll see on this screen, yeah, if we can go to that next slide, we can kind of see the breakdown of the plan versus actual. So plan being the estimate that we were working with. And if you look in the other column, the actual, so that's what we produced it after being able to get all the data and analytics from Top Green. And you can see those are very strikingly different. And some people might first thought would be like, okay, the estimate was that bad. Really not. You can just see, you know now what to do with the data that you've brought out of that estimate. 90 minutes is industry average. It's not, we don't claim to have supermen over here, but I mean, we very much typically can think we can stay with the average of whatever the industry is at. And you can see we were around a third of what the estimate was calling for. So talking about labor hours and efficiency as a whole, that to be able to pull that data and make that slight change, we didn't have to do any crazy wizard work or anything on the production end. It was a short conversation about ideas that we can implement, and that was one of the first that we came up with. And obviously you can see the results are very much there as to, but I think the biggest thing to take from all that, Matt and Daniel, is having the data, but also the data being specific enough to know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Right, and I think
And
there's a bunch of ways that you can use that. I mean, if we're talking
Sure.
about the type of labor that you guys are talking about on this single job site, and we roll that across, you know, your entire crew and an entire working season, how
yeah.
much configuring can we do to our labor to just pull free labor out of places? Dan, what's your thoughts on that kind of thing?
Well, yeah, Matt, and one just clarification for everyone too. This job, like which we were, like you said, had for a while, pulling, measuring, estimated versus actual hours, all that stuff, all the things you're supposed to do, was basically coming in at about 100% efficient around there. It was not hitting in like our metrics of like being super high, super low, like would have been a job that we said, hey, Yates, go see this one. We were just like, kind of those are those kind of ones you're like, oh, thank God that job's going well. We don't have to pay that much attention to it, right? And so we
Yeah.
weren't. And then when the Top Green data came back and basically showed everything Yates was talking about, it was like, oh, there's a lot of efficiency to find in the middle on jobs that are like, kind of winning, which was like real eye opening. Like it's easy just traditionally in the industry, you measure your actuals versus your estimate and kind of know what's going on and just kind of assume if you're kind of the crew's hitting the goal that you're good. But there's an immense amount of efficiency to gain, not just on low efficiency jobs, but actually just on middle of the road jobs where you're kind of hitting the mark. And our learning there is that like the guys in the field, our team members there are compliant with what we ask them to do. So we dispatch a schedule, a ticket with hours on it. They see they got 12 hours. That's what they shoot for and do 12 hours, right? It's not their job to find efficiency. It's our managers and our leaders' jobs to schedule and plan and create efficiency, which is what Yates did on the back end using like Top Green. So in my mind, like it's like that realization for us was like, oh my gosh, again, this is what our philosophy is. Guys just need to do what we ask them to do and be compliant with that. They don't need to like be superheroes like Yates said. They just, but we have to figure out how to schedule and plan efficiently so that we set those guys up to be successful, right? And Top Green, like really, like on this project, allowed that to happen. And our goal now is just how many times over and over can we do that? And then as we free up labor, it's not about necessarily reducing our labor necessarily. It's about then putting that freed labor up on the next job where those guys can go, earn us revenue, and we can expand our revenue production with the same team versus like, we're like everyone else. We don't have too much labor. We don't want to cut labor. We want
Right.
to just utilize the team as best we can. So those guys get paid what they want to get paid, but they are creating value on all that time versus just using time, right? That was a huge revelation for us, kind of in this process.
Awesome. Well, one of the things that I think wanted to kind of touch on with these vests, and this might be a good point to talk about this a little bit. So what you saw on the previous slide there was a picture of the actual vest and the crew that was running them down there. And as you can see, it's basically the same type of safety vest you already use. It has a portion of wearable tech that is built into the actual vest itself. Those vests go up on just a normal hanging rack like you would have for any other piece of clothing, and they've got a little magnetic charger that charges. So they don't have anything that they need to power on. They don't have anything with Wi-Fi or signal that they need to pair in order to get this information and getting them run. Did you guys run into problems with that kind of thing?
Uh,
Honestly, it was a pretty smooth transition for us over here. I mean, we already, policy as soon as we're step on to at our shop, as soon as that time is, we have a safety vest on. It doesn't come off until we're off the site, off the clock for good. So it was an easy thought for us because we already are in the culture of wearing the safety vest. It was very easy. You're still gonna it's something new. So other than the hey guys, let's remember to grab the vest off the hook kind of thing, but that was more of a first second day than obviously it's routine at that point. But as far as the wearability and what we're doing already, it just kind of transitioned very smoothly into what we already have in process.
yeah, Matt, you might remember like the beta version, right? Where it's kind of like a large pager. Like it was pretty big. The guys had to wear, and there was a lot of issues with kind of those guys were like this. I mean, more of like uncomfortable, not like what does it do, but like this gets in the way. And I will give a shout out, whether it's true or not, but Ben Collinsworth over at Yellowstone came up with the idea of the vest, and Sashi and team executed on it. And it's been way better from a friction, like just like Yates said, frictionless. Um, it fits into the system. Guys were wearing safety vests already. You just wear this safety vest versus that safety vest, right? Um, so uh, so give Ben a little credit there. But the other thing too is we were really transparent with the guys of what we were doing. It wasn't like we really want to use this tool to engage the team, not to like, this isn't a big brother thing. This isn't like, oh, we know what you did. It's like, hey guys, we want to go out and learn about how we can do our jobs better. We're professionals. We need feedback. We need metrics. We want to share those as we get them, developed and show you what's going on. Um, we've talked a lot about, if you look at professional sports, they watch a lot of game tape. I mean, shoot, nowadays, like my high school athlete watches game tape, how they performed, what they did, get ready for the next game. And here we are, we're professionals in an industry, and we're sometimes just so focused on go, go, go that we don't stop and take a minute to like, oh, review how did it go? How do we do it better? How can we do it easier, faster, meet client expectations? Which I think is a big part about this. We're talking a lot about labor efficiency, which is part of the game, but the other part of the game is quality, producing a good product, taking care of the customer, right? And so it's not one or the other, it's both. Like that's the commitment, as being a professional in the industry. That's why we're not homeowners just taking care of our backyard. We're, being paid for this, which means we have to like live to both metrics. And so that's what Yates talked about earlier. Like, oh, we're seeing like we can hit the quality or better spend the time, to produce the result we're trying to get without blowing hours and budgets, and clients happier. We're making money. Like we're being professionals.
Absolutely. In kind of a close follow-up to what we're talking about, we do have a question from Bob, a couple questions actually. He asks, number one, assuming these need charging, which the vests do need charging, who's responsible and do they always remember to plug it in? So that's one question. Number two, any pushback from the crews about being tracked, which is an interesting word. It's an apt term, but it holds a lot of context there. And number three, how does the system know that the crew member went from mowing to trimming? I'll explain that in a little bit here. Is the system relying on the worker to report what they are doing, and how does that work? Okay, so let's take the first one, assuming the need charging is responsible for it. So Yates, how do you guys handle that so far?
Super simple for us. We've had zero problems. I've yet to have a day that it's happened. Now I say that it's probably going to happen tomorrow. But
It will. Things
with,
happen.
with that being said, we put it on the foreman. It's a foreman responsibility. For us, it's not super abnormal to some of our processes. We have some crews that work already on some battery operated stuff. We have some autonomous mowers that we've messed with a little bit as well. So the whole charging thing was not completely foreign to us as it might be other companies, but it's just like any routine that you put in place. You'll have a manager that probably has to say something to the foreman or whoever's responsibility that you put it on, maybe once or twice. Just push it, make sure it's a thing. Let them know that this is going to be it's an everyday thing. You're going to keep hearing about it. Let's make it a part of our daily routine. But for them, it was come in the afternoon. They already come see us in the office anyways to report back on the day. And so it's just a simple right outside the door in our shop. Hey, make sure you plug that in when you hang it up kind of deal.
Yeah, and what we've done from just a product standpoint is we've tried the charger is a magnetic charger that's very similar to what you'll see in a lot of modern computers and stuff, where you don't got to physically find a port. It just kind of clicks right on. And that's attached to a little post that's hung up on the wall. So when they're done with the day and they hang their vest up, they just click the little charging port on it. Now, on the backside for CrewIntel, we do have a monitoring system on our side that tells us the charge of all the vests, the thousands that we have. And so if we see a common problem, we will let you guys know. If you're saying, hey, we're not seeing data on this, it's pretty easy to tell because it's a constant thing. So yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the way that we've approached it. And it sounds like you guys haven't had too much problem with that, and we haven't seen much problem on our side. What about pushback from the crews? Are you getting much?
So I think this was one of my first thoughts as soon as I learned about what this was going to be and what was going to hold. I thought this was going to be something that's probably going to put some people the wrong way. How I dealt with it, I didn't have anyone that had a super big problem with it, just to be upfront. I had some people that were curious about it, of course,
Mhm.
about what its capabilities were, what it wanted to do. So how I approached it is kind of like Daniel's touched on a little bit is this is to help you to help me. I want to put you in a position to be as successful as you can. I don't want you ever worrying about what should I do from this point to this point. So I also explained it in this way. It is to make you more efficient, which does not equate to less work for you in ways of hours, labor hours, right? Every crew that dealt with this was explained, hey, I want to be able to make you more successful, to provide more quality, to be safer on the job. That is what the point is. And the end game is not to make you so efficient that you used to work 50, now you work 30. Sorry. It is, we put those hours to better use, right? And that could be this crew now has opportunities and open schedule for enhancements. It could be for details on the property that are not being taken care of, special requests, help on other properties with other crews. There's many ways that you can manipulate what you can do with this extra time, right? And it's for me that came off very well to the crews. I got a lot of positive response, knowing that it's not, hey, I want to put something in your pocket to know when you go to the bathroom type of deal. It's more so, hey, I want to know what I can do to provide you the best, put you in the best position to be successful. And it was receptive. We got very little to any pushback after them understanding that this is for you, not against you.
Yeah,
Makes
Matt, I
total
think
sense.
any change like is going to take leadership, right? I mean, that's what our roles are as leaders, managers. And then Yates is a great leader, and it wasn't his first day with this team. He built relationships. He knows his guys. They trust him. He's done all the things he needs as a leader to like implement change to make positive, results and get the results that he did. So, I would just say anyone who's concerned about that, I would just say like it's a leadership thing. It's up to us as leaders how do we lead our folks and help them understand and do all the things Yates talked about. A real, big hats off to Yates for making it a smooth transition for us and the entire team at Durham. Because at the end of the day, that came down more to that team and how they showed up and how they communicated than anything like Top Green did or needed to do. Right? The Top Green provides the tools. We have to use those tools and execute with those tools.
Well, and there's a learning curve there, just in so much as what we're providing is a very big data set that can be used a ton of ways. So there is some ownership that companies have to take in how you then make that change actionable, right? And that's part of it. And the more that you can get the crews integrated with that, I think the better. We did have a question specifically about how this understands what equipment the crews are using. So there are two basic parts to how CrewIntel gets the data that it does. One is the vest, which has an actual working GPS tracking system that monitors and breadcrumbs every minute that they are anywhere in geospace. What then happens is we have a small inner dongle that we attach to each piece of equipment. It doesn't need to be charged. It just gets zip tied to it. When that vest comes within a certain distance of that machine, it's telling the software, hey, he's using that piece of equipment. So without them having to log in with their phone or say, hey, I'm jumping on this piece of equipment and I'm on this job site, the software does all of that. So there is nothing from an on-site thing. They pull their truck up. Everything that is on the truck has a small dongle on it. So no matter if they decide, which we've seen, to use two guys with two 52 inches to mow an area, or one guy to mow with a 60 inch, or whatever piece of equipment suite is being used on that site, it is automatically just downloading that information. There is no intervention that the crews need to do. And I think that was a really important part of making this as simple as we possibly can to get that information. We don't want them worrying about that. We want them worrying about doing the job, if that makes sense, right? One of the other things that, we like to see when people are adopting a new change, right, is how this can then help other people and team members other than just, for instance, the crew members. So in your case, Yates, as a production manager or even a foreman, how do you foresee a solution like this dovetailing into kind of your everyday operations on that front? So beyond just the labor and estimating side, how does this help you? Like, what other ways can this kind of thing help you in your job capacity?
Honestly, I think kind of like you touched on, the opportunities are endless, depending on whatever you can think of how you want to customize it, whatever your goal is. Because just like we used for the example with Calyx, taking the crew member off, there was 9 other options that we could have gone through to try to get some sort of results. And who's to say the 3 was the best? You have to try all these, but you have the information to do it. But I think for on the production end, one of the biggest things I think probably for anyone in any job, but especially this, is just the everyday things that come up. I have a list of properties I want to see Monday through Friday. You don't account for piece of equipment breaking down, someone's truck, tire needs to be replaced. There's just a lot of things that are going to come up in a production standpoint of the day that needs to be taken care of. That takes higher priority than other things you've already tried to schedule for. I think just being your boots on the ground. Biggest thing, production wise, anyways, is being able to kind of like Daniel said, have the game film. You get to see exactly what was done, how it was done. Was it to the standard that you've already talked about? If you've already gone over the game film, so to speak, with the crew, I think it allows you to not have to be there 24/7 to be able to get the results that you need. I think that it allows the time for the other things that are going to come up, that are going to continue to come up. It's not an excuse to not have your production managers or people, superintendents, whatever, to be on the site, to be overseeing the crew. That is still a very high priority. I just think for, if we're being honest and knowing that some guys have 80 plus properties to take care of or oversee, if you're in a situation like this allows your production team to have all of the highlights, so to speak, every day. You get to go back, you get to look at it, you get to see that this is working, this isn't working. And I think the most important thing is to understand, just like any job planning, it's not never ending. You can get better results, and who's to say that another change can't critique to continually get better results, right?
Absolutely. Dan, what about even in the hiring process of how you're organizing different branches in that? Does this give you tools to be able to, don't want to say do more with less, but that is kind of operationally the goal that we're all hunting for, so to speak.
Yeah, I think again, the industry likes to talk about having a labor issue and meaning shortage of labor, right? And I've tried to rephrase that in the last few years for me mentally as like we have a sales issue. We're selling more than we've got people to do. It's a real positive thing. And so, and then if you kind of, as we've been able to like unlock some like hours, like Yates has described, and put that towards other things, it helps you solve your sales problem. So you can continue to sell and, you know, produce as much revenue as is available out there in the marketplace and stuff like that. So, and then I think the other part is like, there's an interesting thing as we had used in the past when or when we were actively using bomb data and ranking people, typically without these tools, the top performers are the guys who can go onto a site and just understand how to process that site real well. And they're probably a little bit better managing their crews. And they're just like, they just get that naturally versus, and your lower performers really just probably don't have that innate ability to do that. It's not probably our fault for not training them how to do that, right? And so it's not really they're bad people or anything like that, or they don't have the potential of producing at a higher efficiency. It's just when they see a site, they don't see the most efficient way just to do it like somebody else might. And that's what we kind of started to notice with our ranking. It was like, oh, this guy just sees it, this guy doesn't. How do we help this guy see it, right? Well, we can literally show them. Like we can say, hey, go out and produce today. Let's then look at the game film. Like what can we do better? So from a training and development standpoint, there's a lot of benefit there. And so because one of my takes is like, yeah, perfect world, every guy on the crew, every property, you're getting all this data in, but like that'd be a little overwhelming and probably a little cost prohibitive. But the real reality is like if you can kind of tackle some key projects, work with some key people, improve them, they then learn, just like Yates and I learned a lot from the Calyx project ourselves. And then they take that learning to the next job site and they go, oh, this is a lot like that other job site. We should start here, go here, do this. You do that, I'll do this kind of stuff. And so, because in a perfect world, if everyone saw like what we're uncovering with this data just naturally, you wouldn't really need the tool. But we don't live in that world.
Right.
But yeah, we can help improve guys and then if they're doing, if they're understanding the job, they're executing, they're hitting the quality, then, we can compensate them for, the best that we can compensate them, which is always our goal, like, moving people up, giving them opportunities. And so I think it's a real long-term win-win between like what the company's goals are, what an individual team member's goals are. And so, so it is, starting to impact how we're thinking about staffing branches and developing people and all of that.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that, guys. I do think we've got a poll question for everybody that's on in attendance. So we'll try and get that posted here in a second. What do you believe is the biggest factor impacting your crew's productivity? Job site inefficiencies, crew work habits, equipment-related delays, or we don't measure productivity closely, so we're not sure? which is pretty common. Okay. Crew work habits seems to be pretty popular here. Job site inefficiencies, yeah. Yeah, so it looks like people, for the most part, it seems like, crew work habits and job site inefficiencies. We kind of talked about that. We talked about kind of the traditional ways that we address those. With this tool, especially even with crew work habits, breaks, pace, motivation, accountability, talk about how we can leverage some of the labor that and data that we're looking at to kind of produce. Yeah, we want the crews to have an incentive in order to do work better,
Yeah.
right? So, we talked about implementation with the crews and some of those things. What are some ways that we can incentivize maybe some of the work they're doing on site using something like this?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think the first thing to preface is that, like everyone, there's bad eggs in every bunch. But overall, from I just as an industry whole, I've worked at different places. People want to be good at their jobs. No one wants to come do something every day that they feel that they're subpar at. So already, for one, bringing in and understanding that with given the right tools, most people want to succeed and be very good at whatever they're spending their time doing. That's just a natural, innate thing with just being a human being. So knowing that you're not, these people hold value in themselves. And I think more so of what Top Green can provide, and as managers and leadership, as you can provide them, are ways to be even better at doing something they're already very good at. I think that the value in that is overlooked a lot. I know that if someone could give me a tool set to say, hey, you're already, you know, at this level. I just want to be able to bring you up here with the 1% of whoever does this job or whoever does. I know I would adopt it immediately. Um, that's also innate in me, who I am. So, but I think that's not uncommon for people. So I don't want to take that away from, especially just being as close as I am to crews and people in operations. Is you want to be able to give people the skill set to succeed, and I think Top Green makes it very easy to do so in the ways that you can implement it. So I would say that when just talking about the poll, and I would say for most people, I don't want to speak for everyone, but a lot of the times I would say if you were really to break down the time, it vice versa of people taking breaks or job site inefficiencies, you're gonna more lean to the inefficient part of why are we not getting stuff done as we should and on time and on schedule. And don't get me wrong, like I said, there's always some bad apples that could be dragging the other one along, but for more, if you have a solid team, like we're blessed to have, then you can bank on that the breaks and people not knowing what they're supposed to be doing, that kind of stuff, is, I would say, less of the issue than it is the job site inefficiencies.
Yeah,
Makes
I think
total sense.
that's um, Yates was really well said, and I mean, I think that's our role as leaders. We, kind of, believe people want to do a good job, right? And it's just they're doing the best that they currently can do. And sometimes what they best they currently can do is not always efficient, right? Or sometimes it's very efficient, right? But that's just currently. And so, yeah, being able to help those guys unlock this next step, see things differently. They're usually very, in my experience, very like appreciative, engaged, like want to get better. Um, you know, uh, um, it's probably been a place that we haven't served people as well as we could have over the course of our careers and our company, in regards to like training and developing. And because, like Yates said, so much stuff comes up and things go on, and we have all the same problems everybody else has. But our hope is like, adopting tools like this, bringing tech into the company. We're not talking about replacing people. We're talking about how do we help, engage people, get more out of folks, and and I think that's first step. I think then you get into like over time, hopefully there's incentive opportunities. Like, I believe if we can pay people more than anybody else can pay them, then there's positive on retention and stability and producing the quality results that the customer wants and all that stuff. We're probably a little early in to say that that's going to look like this, but
Right.
that's our hope, right? Um, and I would also say, like, you going back to the question about earlier on change, we have used some incentives in change, like, like gift cards or whatever to like, hey, we need you to use these vests. Which is what we want to do. If you do it, you're doing a good job. Here's just a short-term reward on that to just kind of reward change behavior and things like that. So we haven't revolutionized our compensation plan yet or anything different. We're still learning a lot, and but we what Yates says is what we believe about people, and if we can help facilitate that, then that's a positive win, right? And there's compensation personally in that as well.
Yeah, just to add to that, definitely, I think dealing, especially on the morale side of things, not everything has to be monetary, right? Not everything needs to be a gift card. Not everything needs to be an extra $20 for this, $20 for that. I mean, we do things all the time I mean, Daniel, as you could speak to, and so could I, just the golden cleats. I mean, something as small as something that we as an organization recognize as being important, that this is a token of doing, living out our core values as a company. Um, you would be surprised at someone that's been here for 15 years, that's worked on a crew, that has never received this token, and when they do, how much they appreciate it. So something, even something as small as a symbolization of gratitude, is a great way. Obviously, we know we're in the business and we're in the industry, so the big change would be, the change of pay structure and stuff. But if you're thinking more small, I would recommend get a token of something that everyone recognizes as an achievement within your organization, and adopt that culture. And I think that is something that is easily you can put in the pipeline of things to show appreciation and to show change, and kind of give that good morale throughout the company as well.
Well, guys, thanks so much for being with us. We did get a couple more questions in. I'm sure that there are lots of people that are going to have specific questions. This is such a, I would say, new tool to the marketplace that we have. This is something I think that a lot of people have wanted for a long time for ease of use. And so there is a culture shift that I think will happen with companies that are adopting tools like Top Green, that we want to maintain. One quick thing for Wes. Wes was asking specifically about whether or not the crews need to have some type of mobile device on their phone in order for this all to work. No. No, there's nothing that crews need to have in their pocket or press buttons or anything to that effect. When the physical charger comes off of the vest, when they pull it off the hanger, that's it. Information is running and it is all being sent up to the cloud. And then we view that the next day in actual maps. So there is no intervention by the crew. And I do think that's a big point people want to know, because, operationally we need to know, kind of what to expect in that type of thing. If there are not any last questions from everyone, I just want to thank you guys again, Daniel and Yates. It's been really a pleasure to work with you guys. And I know that, this is something that we'll continue to kind of grow and work on. The nice thing about having this set of data is that we will continually be adding to the things that we can pull from this. We can start creating new ways to view even, some of the enhancements and stuff like that. Data is a very valuable tool. So I think that there are lots of ways that we can bring this to the forefront and kind of adopt this, I would say, kind of new era to the way that we can start viewing landscape maintenance. Anything closing from you guys?
Yeah, Matt, thanks for having us. I think my realization from today, I love, like, you guys have built such good tech that we don't even have to really talk about the tech that much. We get to talk about what we get to do with it. Yeah, we didn't talk about uptime, runtime very much. I mean, we talked a little bit about batteries, but like, I mean, it's the tech is legit. It works. It is not a friction point. You guys have taken out a lot of the friction points so that we can actually implement and use this thing, get better at our jobs, help our guys get better. And it was really fun getting to talk about all that stuff, which is much more interesting to me than, you know, um,
Yeah, it's
quote
nerdy
unquote.
stuff. We all love it.
So good work there. Appreciate it.
We appreciate it.
Yes. Yeah, Matt, I just want to thank you for asking me to join and just kind of piggyback off Daniel. Appreciate and honor to work with you guys and make my life a little bit easier on my end. So I very, very much appreciate you.
That is the goal, guys. That is the goal. And for all of you that have joined us today, feel free to visit us at our website. We'll be reaching out to everybody via email. We'd love to show this in more granular detail. So, quick teams, so we can kind of walk you through the whole thing. Because as Daniel and Yates know, just from working with it, there's so much that you can do with this that, even an hour kind of flies by because there are so many avenues that we can discuss about how we make this work. But at a mass level, this is all about optimizing our maintenance projects. And to that effect, I want to thank you guys so much for partnering with us. And for everybody that has joined us today, thank you so much for your time. And we hope to hear from everyone so we can partner and help make things better for you guys.